And welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio as the intro said. And joining you once again from inside the Creaking Door is myself, Tim Ellis, and my co-host, Brad Blair. Thank you for coming on inside. And Brad, here we are back for another episode.
Right in the thick of Halloween season.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I have been loving there's so much between like AMC and their Fear Fest, and then nowadays with Netflix and Hulu and all the other streaming services, you can find something awesomely scary to watch anytime.
So here's what I find myself doing most nights now when I have some time to watch television. I spend about a half hour switching through all the streaming services, seeing what's on.
Amen.
And I don't end up watching anything.
Because you get frustrated.
Oh, shit, look at that. It's almost bedtime.
Yeah, I'll end up getting frustrated looking for something, and I'm like, yeah, forget it. But, you know, I've also got enough on the DVR as well. I don't know if you started it yet. My wife and I just finished Midnight Mass, which we
did.
Absolutely loved.
We did. It was a slow start, the first couple episodes, and I said, well, let's just keep going. I think we're 3 episodes in.
Okay.
The last one we watched, it started to really pick up, and you could see where the storyline's going to develop to, and I'm liking it now.
Yeah.
So, in fact, we'll probably get back into that a little bit tonight. But I'm a big buff on the old Universal horror movies and the old Hammer horror movies from the 60s, 70s. In this time of year, those are popping up left and right. So I catch those whenever I can. If I have enough time to actually sit and watch a full movie, which doesn't happen a lot this time of year, I will get into the horror of Dracula or the old Universal's original Wolfman. I love, big fan of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when those things are popping up, and, of course, in the coming week or two here, we should have all of the good old Halloween classic specials coming on, too. So, looking forward to those coming on.
'Tis the season.
It is indeed.
One that we both very much love and have since we were kids. So, definitely happy Halloween. This episode will air before Halloween for sure, so happy Halloween to all. And we also invite everyone to tune in to catch our annual Haunted Halloween broadcast on our sponsor station on Eagle 95.1.
22nd annual.
Yeah.
22 years now. Tim and I and our team, the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society, have been going live from a haunted location, doing it on the radio.
Yep.
Obviously, we don't take the microphones with us to every part of the location, but we fill in. We do some on-air segments with you. Tim gets stuck at the helm.
Yeah, doing most of the radio side.
Yeah, but it's a blast, and we've got a great location again this year, a historic business here in our hometown of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, which has been in business for better than 100 years in the same location it's in right now. There have been some issues at the place. They called us in, and really looking forward to getting the team back out in the field for this one coming up on a Saturday night this year.
Yeah, which will make it even more fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if the ghosts aren't cooperating, we can head down to a Halloween party at one of the local pubs, maybe.
Maybe we've done that before in the past. I never know.
It may have happened after midnight.
So check out Eagle Radio 951, the number's 951, eagleradio951.com, and all you got to do is click on Listen Live, and you can tune in to that broadcast on October 30th starting at 9 p.m.
And that's also where you want to go to pick up new episodes of Creaking Door.
You got it. Our new host, powered by Eagle Play. You go to eagleradio951.com, and then just click on Eagle Play, and you will find all past episodes and all these new ones of Creaking Door right there. So check it out. Not to mention, you'll find us on all the major streaming platforms, along with Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many others out there too. So we can't hide these days. They can find us.
That's right. Enough of the shameless plugs. Let's get back into the show with a little something we like to call Paranews.
That's right, Paranews, where Brad and I find a couple stories regarding the weird, the strange, and or the paranormal, and share them with you. And Brad, I'm going to start today. I came across this one, and I'll preface it with this. It's not really paranormal, but it's really cool history, which I love, and I know you enjoy it as well. And an Israeli scuba diver has salvaged an ancient sword off the country's Mediterranean coast that experts say date back to the Crusaders. Wow. Yeah, Israel's Antiquities Authority said Monday the man was on a weekend dive in northern Israel when he spotted a trove of ancient artifacts that included anchors, pottery, and a meter-long, which is a yard-long, sword. The diver was about 150 meters off the coast in 5-meter deep water when he made the discovery. Now, experts say the area provided shelter for ancient ships and is home to many archaeological treasures, some dating back 4,000 years. But such discoveries can be elusive because of the consistently shifting sands, they say. Fearing his discovery might be buried, the diver took the sword ashore and delivered it to government experts. The authority said the weapon is estimated to be 900 years old.
How cool is that?
Oh, so cool! And it is just covered in like all this sea life. You can see the shape, but they're going to do their best to get all of this sea life off of it, and
without doing damage to the blade.
To the sword.
I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. But so cool. That type of history I love, and so not really paranormal per se, but
what a great discovery.
Cool, yeah.
What a great discovery.
You got it.
So, Tim, when your time comes and you find yourself among the dearly departed, and if you have your chance, your option to haunt one location, well, let me tell you, there are apparently a couple of earthbound spirits that have been lucky enough to call the Playboy Mansion home in the afterlife.
I can't say, honestly, if I'm thinking about it, that did not cross my mind, but okay.
Well, now it will.
Yeah.
Bridget Marquardt, former Playboy bunny and one of Hefner's ex-flames, recently revealed that she once saw an apparition in her bedroom at the Playboy Mansion.
All right.
Yes. Marquardt, perhaps best known as one of the stars of E! Network's The Girls Next Door, claimed she spotted the ghost while hanging out in her bedroom with her sister and a friend. All of a sudden, out of the corner of all of our eyes, we saw a woman standing in the closet area. And there's no exit out of there, and I'm on the second floor, so there's no other doorway in my room, Marquardt stated. She had black, long, kind of stringy hair and was very pale, very skinny, wearing a tight white T-shirt that looked awkward on her, and she had on like black acid-wash jeans. She was just standing there, says Marquardt. Upon seeing the spirit, Marquardt said her friend immediately started crying while her and her sister remained in shock. But even though the ghost vanished almost immediately, Marquardt claims she recognized the woman as a social secretary at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who she'd met long ago during a test shoot. By the time Marquardt came to live with Hefner years later, the woman had passed from cancer. I'm pretty sure that it was her standing there, and I think that she came to see the new addition to the mansion, Bridget said, referring to a dog that she had adopted that same day.
Okay.
So it might be the pet connection again to the spirit world that we like to talk about here at Creaking Door. So Marquardt's stories don't end there. She also claimed that Holly Madison, her co-star on The Girls Next Door, had once seen a female apparition in the mansion's gym, but didn't really believe her own eyes and didn't know how to wrap her head around that. People have ghost stories dating back decades, added Marquardt, who now hosts her own paranormal podcast called Ghost Magnet. Hefner, she said, often used to tell of a previous inhabitant who suffered a fatal fall in the hall. Marquardt, too, said she always felt something off about the game room in particular. The housekeeping staff shared similar concerns, she said, claiming that they always heard doors slamming and saw some of the games turning on by themselves. So there you go, Haunted Playboy Mansion. Now, you and I have been guests on Bridget Marquardt's Ghost Magnet
Yeah, not
show.
At the mansion.
Not at the mansion,
but
not yet.
But on her Ghost her,
we
her
have,
podcast.
Yes, we have appeared on her podcast. Great time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we need to get Bridget on Creaking Door, and get some elaboration on some of these stories.
It would be great to actually hear her actual account of this.
We're going to have to reach out to her. Let's try and get her on yet this year.
Our people will talk to her people.
Yes.
We'll make it happen.
The people will talk to the people, and we will see what we can do.
But until then, another shameless plug, you can find our episode of her Ghost Magnet on her YouTube channel.
That's right.
Go check it out. All right. My second story for today. Now, this one is paranormal related, and I really like this one. The world's oldest known drawing of a ghost is believed to have been discovered on an ancient Babylonian clay tablet at the British Museum. Now, according to a report Saturday in The Guardian, the bearded spirit being led into the afterlife by a lover on the 3,500-year-old clay tablet was identified by researchers after it had been sitting in the museum's vault since the 19th century. This has been in their possession the whole time, and they just started really looking into it. The absolute spectacular object had been overlooked until recently when Dr. Irving Finkel, curator of the Middle Eastern Department at the British Museum, told the news site. According to Finkel, it was part of an exorcist guide to getting rid of unwanted ghosts, as the back of the tablet bears extensive instructions for dealing with such a situation. The front of the broken tablet shows the male ghost walking with his arms outstretched and with his wrists tied by a rope held by a female. It's obvious a male ghost, and he's miserable, they say. You can imagine a tall, thin, bearded ghost hanging about the house did get on people's nerves. The final analysis was that this ghost had to go, and the lover was the one who made it happen. The accompanying text on the back details the ritual that would dispatch the unwanted ghost to the underworld, ending with the warning, do not look behind you.
So they're researching this. Does it say if it's been put on display?
It has never been put on display, and they are hoping to change that, though, now that they've looked into it and found out a little bit more information on it.
Yeah, I've been to the British Museum, and it's fascinating. It is such a massive complex. It's not hard to believe that this could be sitting in the vaults along with thousands and thousands of other antiquities before they can actually get to them.
Yeah, so very cool story, great find. Just kind of proves, man, take a look at what you got, because you never know what might be there.
Amen. So once again, we're looking skyward for my next story here.
Yeah.
More on the UFO phenomena that seems to be popping up more and more in government news feeds nowadays. So a steady stream of high-profile UFO sightings by U.S. military personnel over the past 75 years warrants more scrutiny and should immediately spur serious congressional hearings.
All right. I agree.
So says a group of retired Air Force officers as they recounted their personal experiences with unidentified craft. Speaking at the National Press Club in Washington, 4 officers said the sheer number of military encounters with UFOs, or unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs as they call them, should make the issue a top priority for the Pentagon. Other official federal agencies and scientific researchers around the world should also be involved in this. In the coming days and months, I think we'll have to deal with this reality because there's an abundant and sober evidence, past and present, for the reality of UAP, said retired Air Force Captain Robert Salas, who helped organize the event and has become a leading figure in the push to make public more info about UFOs or UAPs. Mr. Salas has gained notoriety for his 1967 account of strange lights over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, which he says temporarily disabled nuclear missile sites. We've heard this from some other encounters. I believe one in southern Michigan as well. That was hovering over a nuclear site. Other speakers at the press conference also detailed incidents in which they said UFOs make nuclear missiles inoperable, proving that the craft have the capability to affect American defenses and have technology that cannot be explained. Mr. Salas and his colleagues went public years ago with their accounts, but they've received renewed attention after the June release, and I know we've covered this before on Creaking Door, of the landmark study by the Department of Defense in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Yeah. So let's see if this ends up in front of Congress or congressional committee at least.
We keep hearing, little leaks of this is going to happen, big story coming out, but even though it always seems to kind of be a dud when we hear what they're saying, but I think the one thing we are seeing more and more, though, is these guys have been telling their story for years now, for a while now.
And these are retired military officers.
And exactly. But now they're starting to get a chance to tell their stories in front of more legitimate people and organizations. So they're really starting to catch some traction.
Yeah, we talked a couple episodes back with Bill Konkoleski, the head of Michigan MUFON, about this coming out and how much more attention it seems this year in particular the media's been paying to the UFO phenomena. So we will see if it goes anywhere.
For sure. And a gentleman who has been paying attention to the UFO phenomena for years and has put out a brand new book on it is going to be our next guest inside Creaking Door.
Coming up right after this.
You got it. This is Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by Eagle Play. Ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, and anything strange is back at the 12th Annual Michigan Paranormal Convention in Sault Ste. Marie, August 25th through the 27th, 2022, at Kuwaitan Casino Hotel and Convention Center. All-star presenters and over 50 vendors await you for a weekend you will not forget. It's your chance to meet cast and members of your favorite paranormal TV shows and your favorite authors during the largest paranormal gathering of its kind. To get your tickets and more information, continue to follow www.miparacon.com for the 12th Annual Michigan Paranormal Convention. And welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. Tim Ellis and Brad Blair with you. Creaking Door powered by Eagle Play. And, of course, all social, you can find us out there, Brad. We're at creakingdoorparanormal.com. Our Facebook, Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. And we're on the tweet, too.
We tweet once in a while.
Once in a while, we hit the tweets.
A little bit of tweeting.
Yeah, we don't do that Instagram or... God,
the TikTok. We're not doing the TikTok.
And what's the other one where it was created so that kids could send quick pictures to each other? Do you remember that one?
No.
I don't know.
Instagrams?
No, that's not
the Instagrams.
No. Anyways, I digress. It doesn't matter. We're not on it anyway. The ones we mentioned, we are on. But welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. It's great to be back in the studios with you, and very happy to be welcoming our next guest on with us. He is a gentleman we have known for quite some time. I met him through Brad, as Brad ran into him running around through castles over in Europe.
As tends to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And since then, we've gotten to know this gentleman quite well over the years through MIParacon, and it's great to have him back inside the Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. He is known as the Paranormal Detective. He is a paranormal explorer, international lecturer, and author. Please welcome back inside the Creaking Door, Greg Lawson. Greg, happy return, sir. It's great to have you back inside with us.
Thanks, old buddy. It's good to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. So I do want to make sure if people are looking for you online, they go to authorgreglawson.com, not to be confused with the actor Greg Lawson out of Toronto, Canada, correct?
That's correct. Or you can find me at theparanormaldetective.com.
That one as well. So there you go.
You can't find me on Snapchat, though.
Snapchat, that's it.
Wow.
That is it, Snapchat. See, you knew what we were talking about.
Even if we didn't.
But I have a feeling that has to do with the fact that you work in the law enforcement. You got to
That's
know
right.
That stuff, right?
Yeah, we make child abuse cases on Snapchat for sure.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that. So there we go. Snapchat is what we were talking about. But welcome back inside, Greg. And let's get caught up, man. A brand new book out for you.
Yeah, it was really exciting. Once I got it done, I can't thank Beyond the Fray enough and for their patience, man, for this thing, because I was supposed to have this thing out a long time ago, and certain things happened in 2020, and I ended up being laid up because of my leg in 2020 and my knee, and I had surgery and all that stuff. So it was one thing after another. And, every once in a while I would get a little email, how's it coming?
Hey.
From the publisher. I'm like, I'm trying, man. And so, it's so funny. I've had so many interviews on this. Everybody's asking me, They preface it as, hey, what made you want to write a book about Roswell? It's very well tread. It's pretty much been investigated to nauseum. And why in the world would you want to step off into that swamp? You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm an idiot.
Well, yeah, but no, seriously, you've traveled the globe exploring, some of the strangest, weirdest places, literally in the world, but it seems like almost probably as long as I've known you, you keep going back to that Roswell mystery, and I know you've talked about doing this book for years and years. So, what finally made you sit down, I guess, and put pen to paper on this one?
Well, partially you.
When are you going to write that book, Greg?
it partially my wife saying the same thing. When are you going to write it? What are you doing with this 3
but we were just kidding.
Stack of books and papers and notes, and I always say I feel like that guy in the X-Files. I'm in my grandma's basement, and I have a bunch of pictures, taped up on the wall, and I got a bunch of maps, and I got a bunch of pictures of things, and just all kinds of stuff, and I got my grandma's yarn out, and I'm dragging the yarn from this person to this thing to this location. It'll drive you insane, my friends. If you're investigating Roswell, it will drive you insane.
I can imagine. I've read the book. Now, the book is titled Roswell: The After Action Report, and it's a different look at the. I'll say the only book that I've actually read that was specifically on Roswell was Stanton Friedman's Crash at Corona.
Which I loved that book. I like that book a lot.
Yeah, and that was kind of the rebirth of the Roswell mystery, I believe, or right around that time frame. So, yeah, tell us a little bit how you got involved and how you got interested in the whole Roswell mystery.
Well, I've always been kind of a sci-fi kid. I was my pseudo father is James T. Kirk. I went home every day, and from second grade to, I don't know, probably freshman in high school, every day, 3:30. Sit down, eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some Fritos, and watch Captain Kirk do his thing, And so I was always interested in that sort of stuff, and I was always kind of a sci-fi kid. So in that, I had a real interest in UFOs, and you hear stories about UFOs. And my brother Bill and my brother Skip were in Colorado, and they had seen a UFO. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was a helicopter doing night operations with no noise, or whether they were on LSD. I'm not sure what they were doing.
Those two don't have to be exclusive.
Yeah, I'm quite sure they were at least drinking, if not smoking some herbal remedies. And but they had this story about this light that came down and hovered above this lake where they were camping out in the middle of nowhere. And so that intrigued me. And then, in the late, I guess, 1989, 1990, somewhere around there, the Unsolved Mysteries episode, and that was just so intriguing. There was there was some other things, Kenneth Arnold stuff. I knew about that, and I was just always really interested because I don't believe that we're alone. When you look at how many stars there are out there, there has to be some other life out there. It might be just a caterpillar crawling around on something, and it might not ever be able to get here to Earth, but maybe it can, or maybe something can. So I was just really interested in it, and this was a really compelling story. So yeah, that's Lynn and I started going up there about 15 years ago, and I think we've been to 9 or 10 of the UFO festivals. So I've sat in, with my chili dog and my big red soda, and sat in on the military mind control seminars and the alien abduction seminars and the crash seminars and all that stuff. And I've been talking to a lot of these people, and for the most part, I just kind of sit in the background and listen. That's something, by the way, that cops don't do very well. They usually want to be talking, want to be solving stuff, and it's amazing what you can accomplish if you just shut up. So I'm shutting up.
Let's follow that up with allowing our listeners to know that you are a law official, correct?
I am.
You're not throwing shade at the boys in blue and the brown or anything else.
Right. I'm a patrol lieutenant. I supervise a shift that works from 9 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. So I'm on the midnight crew, graveyard shift.
Oh, I was going to say but isn't that the shift where if you're going to see something,
it's where the action happens.
It's where you're going to see it, right?
That's right. Yeah. I'm reminding all my guys, make sure you check your cemeteries. Check your cemeteries.
And keep looking to the sky. So,
that's right.
Yeah. Now, you had said, Greg, when you first came on that, it seemed like this was just a book that kind of was always there and you couldn't finish it and you finally finish it now. But, they always say there's no such thing as coincidences. Things happen for a reason and when they're supposed to. And perhaps that's the way with the book. I mean, if you look at how much mainstream media is starting to pick up on UFO sightings now and how much we're starting to see ex-government and military officials coming out and sharing their experiences, it seems like we're starting to see this snowball, yet slow, but this snowball effect of more information starting to come out.
Something along the lines of disclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be super. That's one of those things. I know that there's been quite a few people that have contacted me and said, "Wow, really? You said this? You actually put this in print in your book? You're going to get rolled. You're going to get a lot of a lot of attacks on both sides, and it's really unfortunate in the UFO community. Somebody has an opinion, and instead of discussing the opinion or refuting the opinion or developing other hypothesis or something like that, you're just personally attacked, and it's a damn shame the way that a lot of these conspiracy theorists will approach it, but I know this going into it. I've been attacked before. I've been, there's been many a time attempted assassinations, and so I'm just kind of sitting back and going to roll with the punches on this one. I don't make any claim to be a Roswell expert. You got Don Schmidt and Tom Carey and Kevin Randall and the late Stanton Freeman and guys like that, a bunch of people that I have not mentioned that are real Roswell experts. I am not. I am an expert in what I do. And one of the ways that I approached this was addressing all of the original players, not the people that came forward after 1978, after Stanton Freeman talked to Jesse Marcel, and then it slowly started growing, and all these people started jumping on the bandwagon. I don't know whether they're legitimate or whether they just want to be a part of something, but they jumped on the bandwagon. And when you have, 700 plus people all saying they saw something strange related to this incident, it becomes quite compelling. So I decided to go back and look at the real guys that had the real firsthand knowledge and some sort of action when this originally happened in 1947. Take a look at them. Take a look at the social and cultural climate that was happening in 1947, not only here in the United States but also in the Soviet Union. And then look at the contemporary investigation that the Air Force was compelled to do through the 1994 report that they released in a report after that, and take a forensic statement analysis view of what they said and how they said it. And when you look at it that way, the government is still covering up a whole bunch of stuff. And this is, statement analysis is something that law enforcement uses to solve murders, to solve big, espionage crimes and that sort of thing. And so this is a proven method that you look at the way people talk. and the way that they form their sentences. And it tells you a lot. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about the book. One of the things I liked about the book is it's not another book of conjecture and opinion on what happened. You know, you've got the one side on the Roswell theorists who believe that, yes, it was an extraterrestrial craft that crashed and 4 dead aliens were taken from it. Then you've got the government side that, of course, mix-match their story a little bit to the point where it was just a weather balloon or part of Project Mogul. But yeah, you really go for just the facts in this, the actual statements, what was going on with the military at the time. It's not somebody out there with their conspiracy theories.
It was so hard to try to cull out the noise, man, the fodder, all of the chaff that has come up out of this incident. You know, you'll have 2 Roswell experts that will sit for an hour and argue whether this incident actually happened in, you know, the mid-June of 47 or, you know, July 4th. And they'll waste a whole hour just jibber-jabbering back and forth about how, you know, it's because this person was here and this and that. And, you know, I'm not going to nail stuff like that down. I'm not going to be able to prove any of that. Most of this thing that happened has happened and disappeared into a hole in the sky. There's no more remnants of it. And we don't know what happened. But what we can do is we can look at what people said that were actually there happened, look at what transpired out of what they said, and the actions that they took. And it tells us, it gives us a better, different look at it. And I'm really glad that you said that, because I was trying. How do you write a different Roswell book? How do you do that, man? And that's, I think, why it took me a year and a half from the time I, you know, sat down and tried to kind of explain my process. And then halfway through my process of writing the book, I kind of switched gears a little bit because of just the pure disinformation and difficulty that the Air Force was presenting. I mean, their investigation, I would not have wanted to be those guys, but their investigation from the very, very, very beginning was tainted.
Yeah, that's very interesting, that aspect in the book, too. And one of the stories that Tim and I covered in Para News before we brought you on tonight was retired Air Force officers that are calling for congressional hearings now on UFOs. And one of the stories that goes back to a base in Montana that officers, people that were present, swear this light was hovering above and it messed with their nuclear capabilities. It took their nukes offline. And I've always found that fascinating. We've heard that in other locations, too. And one of the things that I don't think gets addressed a lot on the Roswell case that you bring up in the book is the significance of the 509th Bomber Group that was located at Roswell.
Right.
And that was I believe, the only nuclear-capable group in the U.S. at the time?
At that time, it was the only one. And, you know, a lot of the investigators talk about, well, these were the best of the best. These guys were the only ones that were trusted enough to deliver a nuclear weapon. Well, I've been in the military, and I know that billets are filled based on availability, not I'm going to, you know, create this list of these amazing people and I'm going to bring them in. That's not how it works. You might get 1 or 2 people that you hand select to come in, but the rest of them, we have 20 openings over here. Who's available? and they look a little bit at it because I've worked with some folks. You know, I did basically 10 years between active duty and reserve time in the military, and I know for a fact that there's quite a few people in charge that aren't that sharp. And they're in charge of amazing things. Yeah. And you know, Brad, let me ask you a question. Okay, so this is a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Your wife ends up dead at your house, and you and her were the only one at home at the time. And the police come in, and they go, "Oh, wow, nobody else is in the house, and she's she's had this injury and died. Hey, well, man, could you investigate this and just get back with us and tell us what you come up with?
Demons.
Yeah. That's what they did in this thing. The Air Force was the suspect in this conspiracy. So what do? They ask the Air Force, hey, can you investigate yourself and tell us that what you didn't do? The crazy part is when the congressman should have requested this to be investigated, this got passed on to the group that was going to investigate Colonel Weaver. Colonel Weaver just wrote a book last year called Backstory Roswell, and he wrote a very telling. It's a good book. I absolutely recommend it, but it's still condescending and snarky. Listen to this. He writes in there clearly, we had to do better than a snarky but true response in order to answer the congressman's request, however goofy it was.
Wow.
That's the guy that's investigating your case.
Yeah.
I mean, from the very beginning, he opens up the request and it's like, oh, my God, this is goofy, And so when you have a team that's investigating like that, you have no credibility at that point, And then it's really interesting to watch some of the videos on YouTube of when they're talking about, they're doing the press release on their report, and multiple times they do gratification smiles, which when you're studying somebody when they're doing an interview, it's beautiful. If you go and watch Bill Clinton on YouTube denying his involvement with Monica Lewinsky, and he's pointing his finger at the camera saying, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I did not. I should be doing the people's work. I'm going back to do the people's work. And he steps back from the podium, starts to turn and walk away, and gets a grin on his face. Because people that are doing this, people that are manipulative, people that are borderline personality disorder or borderline sociopath will do this because they know that they sounded so convincing that they're happy with themselves, and they can't help but not do the gratification smile. And it's amazing because I have a couple of different cases that I work, a couple of criminal cases I worked, and I based it off of their gratification smile after what they told me.
Wow.
I pushed them into a corner and finally got the truth out of them just based on these little things that you do during interviews and interrogations and a forensic examination of statement analysis. So
do you find that, Greg, to be like an internal ego almost? Like they don't even realize that smile's happening? It just happens?
They don't realize it. No. Wow. They do not realize they're doing it. And they can't help but do it.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
You know what's the crash happens at Roswell, hits the media, and then shortly after the military is trying to throw out all these other smoke bombs, if you will. This is what it was. This is what it was. It wasn't aliens. It was this and that. It's very reminiscent to a case that happened close to Brad and I's home here in Sault Ste. Marie, which is known as the Kinross incident.
Right.
In November of 53, where Felix Moncla and Robert Wilson scrambled in a jet to follow a UFO that was going over the Soo Locks and then out into Lake Superior. That whole incident ended in the strangest mystery to the point where neither of the two pilots have ever been found, no bodies. And
no wreckage.
And when it first came out, when it first hit the media, of course, everyone's in panic and shock, and stories are being shared. And then within 24 hours, the military's throwing smoke bombs again.
Yeah.
And they're trying to blame it on everything but what it seems it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as far as I'm concerned, the way that they're handling this, it just tells me one more time, you just got to question people that are in charge because in a case, if you're going to come in, I'm a law enforcement official. If you're going to come into my house, or let's say you're going to invest, somebody opens up a case against a family member of mine in my jurisdiction, it's my authority there. I can investigate it, but I recuse myself because I'm going to be biased probably toward that investigation. And the simple fact that they didn't bring in a Hynek or a like person to mediate this tells me a whole bunch. It tells me a whole bunch on the deception. I mean, they continue. We've culled through millions of documents, and this is what we've come up with. Well, doing millions of documents, you're going to have to read 40,000 documents. That's like 110 documents a day for 25 years to get to a million. So you're just full of crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, since I know the book's only been out for a matter of weeks now, but since it's been published, have you had any contacts from anybody that claiming to have inside info on anything with Roswell, or anyone that thinks you may have hit on something with this yet that has not been out to the public?
No, but I have been contacted by several prominent investigators, and that wasn't necessarily pleasant. And it's not that I said anything bad about them, because we all make mistakes, right? If we do everything right every day, we don't learn anything, so we don't get better. The only way we can get better is to make mistakes, make adjustments off of that, and move forward. So any mistakes investigators have made in the past, that's just a normal process of conducting an investigation. If you intentionally go in and hoax something, that's different. But so I have a feeling there's quite a few guys out there that want to get me engaged in a conversation that I'm not going to be able to defend myself, for the simple fact that I am not a Roswell expert. I understand the nuts and bolts of the Roswell incident, the Roswell investigation. I would be considered an expert in how to conduct an investigation, and I'm most critical on the Air Force's side, because they really did not do a good job. They had a responsibility to bring this information to the American public and not be condescending and smug about it. And also to document what they did during the investigation, and they didn't do that. They didn't do a good job at that. It reminded me of an internal affairs investigation. When you get in trouble in law enforcement and they open up an internal affairs investigation, you're notified of this, and they say, don't talk about this, don't do anything else. Just sit over there, and when we're ready, we're going to call you in. When they call you in, they will take one or two of these big, thick, 4-inch wide 3-ring binders filled with paper and slam them on the desk and say, "This is the investigation we conducted. You need to admit to what you did."
So they already got you in the corner, right?
Yeah, and it's and most of those pieces of paper, 98% of all that piece of paper has nothing to do with the investigation of what they're looking at.
Good to know.
It's just stuff that they printed up.
Yeah.
Because you did a report about a drug case one time, and this is, let's say you're missing a gram of cocaine. You're supposed to have 3 grams of cocaine. When you turned it in, only 2 got reported, and it's like, all right, where's this other gram of cocaine? And
evaporated.
Yeah, well, or it just was
misplaced.
Miss Wade.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, right.
Because we have, it's really funny. A lot of our scales that we use are scales that have been confiscated from other drug dealers. So
what do you say?
We get this extra stuff here. We're like, all right, well, we'll use this as a scale, and it might be off some.
Are you saying some of those drug dealers may not have been weighing in a good way?
Yeah, a little to their advantage.
Right, exactly.
And so there's all kinds of things that can happen, and that's what the Roswell report. They turned in this Roswell report, and it's almost 1,000 pages long. Well, the actual report is less than 30 pages, but they call supportive documents. Well, those supportive documents were gibberish. Didn't have much to do with anything other than Mogul. And it's just disingenuous, man, the way that they did it. And I had read it like when it first came out. You know, I didn't read all the way through it just because you can't. You know, I don't think there's any human being that can sit down and read that whole thing. I don't know. Because a bunch of it is just a bunch of math, you know, having to do with the mogul balloons and how they're flying and how to keep them constant level and what direction they're going and, you know, that sort of stuff. Yeah, you know, and then they completely, General DuBose has basically a deathbed confession kind of thing. He was sitting in a chair and just talking about his involvement with this thing, and that it was a conspiracy, and that they were never to talk about it again. And it was above top secret. It was the most important thing ever. Mm-hmm. And you know, a mogul balloon that's listening to the Soviets trying to blow up a nuclear weapon is not the most important thing ever. So what was he talking about?
Right.
And in the Roswell report that the Air Force put out, they didn't even mention him one time. His name was mentioned in a couple of documents that were included in the report, but they just acted like he didn't even exist. And when you completely discount and eliminate one of what would be one of the Air Force's star witnesses, yeah, you don't need to tell me anymore.
Right.
You're covering up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some of this stuff, it's just amazing.
It was sadly amusing, the sloppiness of the investigation and the reports that were put out by the United States Armed Services.
Yeah, Thank you for saying that, because it's absolutely true.
Yeah,
those transcripts, you don't edit transcripts. And it was terrible. It was actually absolutely terrible the way they did it.
Greg, no, so you're self-proclaimed not a
Roswell
expert.
No.
But for someone who has been around the subject quite a bit, sounds like you've traveled out there quite a bit, and now recently, over the last couple of years, have taken your ability as a detective, though, and started, you know, looking around, interviewing, questioning people. Have you yourself, since this has all started, and especially now that the book is out, notice anything awkward or weird around you? And of course, I'm alluding to the whole Men in Black or weird phone calls. Has anything like that happened to you during this process?
No, I've had some odd emails from what are obviously very in-depth conspiracy disturbed people. Their email, I won't share here just because I don't. But their email names are, you see it, you're like, oh, really? You know, like Warrior of God, you know, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Warrior of God at whatever, you know, hotmail.com. It's like, oh, my God, really? I hope y'all don't use Warrior of God, because that's at Hotmail, because I don't know who that is. Well, I didn't get an email from him, so.
I don't use it anymore.
Yeah, well, thanks.
No.
So I've had some stuff like that, and it's like, man, come on, let's have this conversation, not try to bully each other into believing you know, our own hypothesis or your hypothesis. Let's talk about this.
Right.
Well, and I think that happens way too much in any field, delving into the unknown. We definitely see that on a regular basis in the ghost hunting, the paranormal research side of things. I've seen this happen in the cryptid side of things. And obviously, as we're saying right now, it happens in ufology as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, and it's interesting how different people will preface their thing. When you ask a question, it matters, right? You can front load your question with a whole bunch of statistics and everything, and then say, do you agree? You know, we've called through 2 million documents, and we're colonels with the Air Force, and we have super top secret security clearances. We've been doing this for 30 years. We work for this secret, investigative agency. Just keep talking credible, and then you believe everything we say, right? You know, and you're an old man sitting there going, oh yeah, well, that's your job. You know, that's what you're supposed to do. And so it was really interesting when you look at the Roswell report, and you look at the questions that they ask these old men that were working on 50-year memories, the way that they would form their questions were very overt and very direct. And what I'm talking about is like if you're a witness to a crash of an 18-wheeler and a car, and I ask you, how fast do you think the truck was going when it careened into the car, when it smashed into the car? Or if I ask, could you estimate the speed of the impact? Mm-hmm. There's two different ways, and it's really interesting because there's studies done on this. If I use things like collided, smashed, careened, that sort of thing, they actually increase the speed when you ask them how fast do you think they were going when they careened into each other, as opposed to if I ask how fast do you, or what do you think the speed was when they touched?
Yeah, the first kind of, it sounds more violent.
Mm-hmm.
It elicits a more, I guess, active response.
Yeah, and like children respond, they want to please whoever's asking them questions. We still have a little bit of that in us when we have officials that are asking us questions, especially when that official will front load a question with a whole bunch of their own, statistics and investigative information, and then ask you the question because you don't want to seem like an idiot, so you're not going to, go against what they said. You kind of just, that's, and you kind of go along with it.
There's almost an intimidation factor to that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. That was a lot of it. And, some of these, even in the report, these older gentlemen in their 70s, I think one was in his 80s, they say, hey, you're going to have to check this because I'm working on 50, years of memories here. So you as an investigator, somebody says, hey, I'm having, some recall issues. This is 50 years old. Can we slow down a little bit? But immediately these investigators, this one, when they were talking to General Trukowski, they ask him a question, and I'm sorry, it was Professor Moore. He says, hey, can we slow down a little bit? And immediately they follow up with a 95 word statement with like 5 different subjects and 5 different questions all in one thing. And I'm just sitting there watching this going, this has to be by design. The Air Force is not an incompetent organization. They're doing this with intent. They're doing this by design, because otherwise, are you trying to glean information out of somebody, or are you trying to feed information into somebody so they agree with you?
Mm-hmm. And try to discredit them at the same time, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the fact that they would be willing to do this on purpose, that it's by design, and knowing that for someone like yourself, and now a book is based on it, and those who are going to really look into this is going to see just how sloppily this was done. But they realize that they have to do it this way. To me, that just kind of adds fuel to the fire of the cover-up. Just how much they need to cover this up, want to cover this up. They're willing to make themselves look bad.
Well, right, and we could come up with all kind of hypothesis on that too, right? Was the upper chain of command of the Air Force tell them, hey, go in here and just mess this up some more and stir it all up and make it even more confusing? Or, hey, let me ask you a question. If, like I said, the snarky but true, they said, we want to make it look like we're doing the best we can no matter how goofy this request was, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. If everybody in your unit, let's say this investigative unit that you have 20 people, and you get this in, and that's everybody's attitude on it, that basically this congressman is wasting our time, this is goofy, Are you going to assign your best investigator to
Right,
that?
exactly. Yeah.
You're going to assign, Jilly Bim Joe Bob over there. Hey, I always give the thing is like, all right, well, all these guys are the best of the best. Really? Harvard, when you hear Harvard, wow, those guys are squared away. Everybody coming out of Harvard squared away. Yeah. Barack Obama came out of Harvard, and so did George Bush. Mm-hmm. So there are levels of competency that we're talking about, and everybody has their specialty, right? Mm-hmm. So are you going to sacrifice one of your very competent, really squared away, smart, just awesome dudes that could be doing an investigation on some sort of espionage or treason or something like that? Or are you going to assign him over to investigate what you consider to be goofy,
right,
and a whole bunch of craziness?
Yeah, you've always got your weak link in the unit, and you've also got your rookies too. So one of the two,
right.
take your pick.
I'm not at all suggesting any of these guys were incompetent. I'm just saying that there are multiple hypotheses we could go with on the, how they considered this. Was this serious? And if they would have considered, if I would have been in charge, I would have looked at it. I would have said immediately, it would have been one of the first things. So I'm investigating myself. I'm investigating my own unit. Okay, I need to go outside. Let me call another law enforcement agency to come in and do this investigation, because I have to recuse myself. I cannot, in good faith, investigate myself, because even if I find, nothing going on here, everybody's going to question the investigation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So to avoid that, you invite a third party in to do it.
Right.
And it's just the fact that they didn't do that tells me a lot.
So it seems there's no real question. There was some type of an Air Force cover-up going on here. The big question at the end of the day is, what was it? Were they covering up military actions of some sort, some type of test that was top secret at the time, or was it in fact extraterrestrial?
That's exactly right. Now, so the funny thing is some of these Air Force investigators, you'll catch them saying, that you guys are just pushing this like it's a cover-up. It's just some big cover-up. It was a cover-up, you knucklehead. Everybody agrees it was a cover-up. You sent out an intelligence officer combined with a counterintelligence officer to go look at the stuff from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. You were covering up things.
They did a great job, because to this day, if you bring up Roswell and say that it was, your opinion is it was an extraterrestrial craft and the government did pull alien bodies out of it, right away, a lot of people are just going to group you in with extremists and with the whole conspiracy groups. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The only person that can lose out of this endeavor I've done with this book is me.
You got it.
I am the only one that can lose out of this deal. And I say that because you had what you just said. You have the people that this was a crashed, extraterrestrial craft with 4 aliens in it, or you have the other people that say this was a balloon.
Yep.
The only people that can be proved wrong is the people that say it was a balloon. Mm-hmm. And I say that because we'll never know if they never do disclosure with a spaceship, right?
Right. Yeah.
So only then, because the people that say it was a spaceship, we can go to eternity and I can still say it was a spaceship, even though it doesn't exist, or they won't release it. It doesn't matter. I can still say it's a spaceship, and everybody hangs on to that. But once you say it was a balloon and then they release a spaceship, you're the idiot.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm kind of sitting there going, I hope it was a spaceship. Mm-hmm. Conventional wisdom, your life experience would tell you most likely it was some sort of airborne craft that crashed, that was made by some terrestrial person, right? So it was made by somebody. That's the most likely scenario, because we've never had physical evidence, like a spaceship, to look at to say whether this has happened or not. So the most likely is it's something that we made.
Right.
That's what your first go-to would be. And when you start investigating it more and more, and you start looking at some of these people like Jesse Marcel, I'm sorry, you're telling me it was balsa wood sticks and some rubber glue and some sort of foil, and you have an intelligence officer of the 509th Bomb Wing that says it was, this was something not of this earth. He's standing there holding a balsa stick and some glue, This makes no sense at all.
Whatever it was, it has become one of the biggest mysteries of the 20th century, and now we're in the 21st century, still talking about it.
Another book released in 2021 based on it, right? I mean, that's how many, as you said, Greg, how many people have covered this story, and we're still talking about it and writing about it and reading about it. So it's
still relevant today.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, because like I said, I tried to come at it from a different angle instead of just writing the same old dribble again.
Yep. Yeah. Now let's end with this here, Greg, because you kind of touched on it already. You said the only person who has anything to lose with this book is you. You're someone who has been, you've got a decade plus of work with our military. You work in law enforcement now. Have you felt any type of pushback from that professional side of your life as someone who is digging into this, looking more into the fringe stuff?
So I got attacked online pretty well by a bunch of Air Force people. It's been kind of interesting. It was pretty amazing how they came after me. And I think I've shut that part of that down. Whenever the people I work with in law enforcement that don't know me, and then find out, well, you're paranormal detective. What did they look at me and roll their eyes? They're like, oh my God. And I have friends of mine that come up and go, hey, yeah, I was talking to so-and-so. They asked me, does Lawson really believe that stuff?
Well, yes, I do.
And so it's pretty weird. I'll be retired in anywhere from 2 years and 3 months to 4 years and 3 months, something like that. I'm not sure when I'm going to punch out, but after that, I'll be unrestricted in providing my opinion on things. But the position I'm in now, I have to be very, very careful about who, what, when, where, why, and how I talk about such things.
Sure. Right. Yep. Absolutely. Makes sense. Well, Greg, we can't thank you enough for taking time to be with us, continuing to be out there sharing your story, and as you said, putting yourself out there the way you are. And but you don't put your time and effort and passion into writing a book like this just to then hide in the shadows, right? You got to get the word out there.
I did it for my mental health, actually. I had to get this off of me and then go take a victim shower. Scrub this stuff off me.
Maybe you should try Sudoku.
I need to try something.
There you go.
Yeah. Or drink like Brad and I do.
Yeah,
it works.
That works.
So the new book is called Roswell, The After Action of Reports. Author Greg Lawson. Greg, you have a few other books out there as well that people can get. Where's the best direction you would like to send them to get those books? There's always a handful of ways to get them, but Brad and I, being poor writers as well, understand certain ways we get a little bit more of the change and other ways we don't. Which way would you like people to go to find your books?
No, I think the best one is probably just to go to Amazon, and you can run my name and the Diaries of a Paranormalist I wrote with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, along with How to Be a Paranormal Detective. I have a couple of other books out there that are semi-related, and you can find them also on my website, theparanormaldetective.com.
Outstanding. He is the Paranormal Detective. You can find all the information there. Greg Lawson. Outstanding, sir. Thank you for being with us and coming on Inside the Creaking Door.
Thank you, my friends.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more on the way with Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by Eagle Play. Our world is filled with hidden mysteries and wonders for those who open themselves up to possibilities that science has not yet explained. Tim Ellis and Brad Blair, two of the authors who brought you Supernatural Haunts, Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society case files, and hosts of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, continue their exploration of the bizarre and otherworldly in their latest book, Great Lakes Monsters and Mysteries. Join Brad and Tim as they recount some of the myriad legends of the lore of the United States Great Lakes region. Along with monsters of the deep, you'll read of UFOs and alien encounters, shapeshifters, cryptids, both winged and terrestrial, imps, fairies, gnomes, black-eyed kids, haunted lighthouses, and phantom schooners. Tim and Brad also share some of the ghost stories and mysterious happenings shared from their listeners of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. Get your copy of Great Lakes Monsters and Mysteries today at www.supernaturalhaunts.com. And welcome back inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by Eagle Play. Tim Ellis and Brad Blair with you. And I'll tell you what, Brad, Greg is just one of those guys that's even better when we're around each other and we're having a beer listening to those kinds of stories. He's just a good guy, and he's fun to sit down and chat with.
Yeah, and I really did enjoy this book. It's a different view of, and it's not, like I said, it's not, was it an alien cover-up, or was it it's looking at the characters, the way that the whole investigation was handled, and you really get an appreciation for how bungled this thing was.
Yeah, and so really, it's not a book that's coming at it from this is alien conspiracy, or this is it was all man-made, whatever. Like you said, it's really just kind of taking here's the information, do with it what you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So check it out. It's called Roswell, the After Action Report, from Greg Lawson. Dave Schrader doing the foreword on it as well. All right, so you can find that book online. Right now, it is time for us to do a segment we call Mailbag. This is our chance for us to kind of get one-on-one with our listeners. We do appreciate for those of you who do share your questions or comments with us, and you can do that through our Facebook page on Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. Send us a message through there, and if we go through and choose some good ones and share them on our show. And this one is from Stephen H. out of Rochester, New York, upstate New York. Says, hello, Brad and Tim. I just recently purchased your new book, Great Lakes Hauntings and Mysteries, and I loved it. Actually, it's Monsters and Mysteries.
It is. He messed up. All right, next one.
But that's quite all right, Stephen. We appreciate it. He says, I had it done in 2 nights. I didn't want to put it down. I wanted to ask, because I've followed your career over the years, how different was this for you guys to do a book based more than just ghosts? Hope you guys are enjoying your Halloween month, and hope to hear this question on your future episode of CD. Your fan, Stephen. Good question. And we've actually talked about this in some of our presentations.
Yeah, it was a fun project.
Mm-hmm.
It was, some of this book put us outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
As some people know, or some of you may not know. Tim and I have been paranormal investigators doing mainly the ghost thing for getting close to 30 years, I guess we can say now. And yeah, this book there were ghost stories in it, but it's a lot more legend and lore. And we got to reach out to some people who had firsthand encounters with some of these creatures that are said not to exist. Mm-hmm. We did some great interviews for the book. We did a lot of digging, a lot of historical research. Mm-hmm. Very different from the first book we did, Supernatural Haunts.
Yeah, Supernatural Haunts was very easy for us to do in generalized speaking. I mean, writing a book, there's nothing just easy about it. But
No.
You and I and one of the other founding member of our team, Steve LaPlante, sat down and we went through our old case files. So really, it was just kind of reliving.
It was autobiographical
Yeah.
to a point, and then we threw the history from our files in too. This book is a totally different creature.
Yeah, no pun intended, or all pun intended. No, it really was from the very onstart of it. It was research, interview, and digging, and it was a very different feel putting this book together, but just as gratifying when it was all said and done.
Absolutely, and through the years, I mean, when we started our investigative careers, we were one of the only, I think, one of 3 or 4 teams in the entire state of Michigan that were doing anything paranormal. So we were getting calls for UFO sightings. We were getting calls for Bigfoot sightings. You know, we dabbled enough and had enough background that we would field some of these. Far and away not experts in the field. But yeah, so this let us bring in some of those stories as well.
And really, and I think you already kind of touched on this, but really brought us back to our roots of why we fell in love with this, the weirdness of the world as kids anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, great question. We certainly do appreciate that, Stephen. Thank you for following along with us out in Rochester and up in upstate New York. And, of course, you can find that book, Great Lakes Monsters and Mysteries, at UperNaturalHaunts.com. That's UperNaturalHaunts.com, where you can pick up either copy of the books. And this time of year, we've seen increased sales, and you expect it.
Exactly.
It's Halloween time. So, speaking of which, being Halloween time, too, as well, Brad, it's been a busy year, probably one of our busiest years ever, on the road and speaking and presenting on the new book. And we just got done not too long ago doing a stay-at-home with Sage Paracon.
We did. Yeah. Right before that, we were in Toledo for Midwest Parafest. We did, of course, Michigan Paranormal Convention the end of August. That kind of kicks off our speaking season.
Yep.
We've got some libraries mixed in there. We've got a few libraries coming up yet and some other events.
Yeah, we got Old Mill Parafest that we're going to be at in Dundee, Michigan, coming up November 13th. We talked about our annual Haunted Halloween broadcast we'll be doing on August 30th. March 5th, Potographs Parafest, Houghton Lake, Michigan, which we were at earlier this summer as well for Michigan UFO Contact event. And we just signed another one in April, so we'll be updating our list as here shortly.
After Halloween.
Yes.
Once we get the Halloween season done, we will be cleaning up our scheduled road trips and appearances, and we'll be posting that on all of our social media sites, of course, so you can follow along and hopefully join us at one of these upcoming events.
There you go. And as Brad said, follow along on social media. It's the best way to do it. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, and we hope to see you out at some of the speaking events very soon. Otherwise, though, we appreciate you coming inside the Creaking Door with us with each and every episode. It was great speaking with Greg Lawson. On behalf of my co-host, Brad Blair, our producers in the background, and myself, Tim Ellis, thank you for coming on Inside Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, powered by Eagle Play.
The Creaking